Hello boys and girls and welcome to a new episode of Unity 2D Tutorials. In this episode, we're gonna integrate the jumping animation sprites into our character controller. Let's go! Alright, so far we've got this fox running around and jumping and crouching without any problems. You see, so we got the crouching animation, we got the running animation, and we got the jumping mechanics, but we don't have the jumping animation yet. You see he's still running. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make him look like he's jumping. And the basics of jumping animations is, in the simplest way, is you need to have two states. The first one is ascending animation and the second one is descending. For simplicity, I'm gonna call them jumping and falling. And the cool thing about this asset is we have two frames which gonna serve the purpose here. Here they are. This one is the flying up and this one is falling down. So we're gonna build the whole mechanics in the sense that whenever he's going upwards, he's gonna play this animation, and whenever he's going down, he's gonna play this animation. Which is not a big deal. It's easy. We just have to follow up the steps. And the second thing is we're gonna put all these animations in a blend tree as we did in for running. And then we're gonna have to determine which one to play by getting the value of the rigid body of the object itself, specifically the velocity of the y value, the vertical one. So whenever we're having a positive value which is going up, that means he's ascending, and as soon as we get a negative value, that means he's descending. And then we're going to use these values to trigger from the script to the animator. Let's start with it. So first thing we need to do is we need to create two animations for the fox. The first one I'm going to call it is jumping, and then in it we're going to need only one frame, that's it. And it doesn't matter if it's going to be looping or not because it's just one frame. The second one we're going to call it fox falling, and it's going to be this one. Like you can see, he's falling, and the jumping, easy. Let's go to the animator. Let's bring this down here. So we've got ourselves the jumping and the falling. We're going to keep them in here. Let's make some space. What we need to do is we need to create a blend tree. Let's call it jumping. And then inside, we're going to have to create two states. Two states. The first one is going to be falling. The other one is going to be jumping. You can see why. And we're going to have to do the values manually, because by default it goes from 0 to 1, which we don't need. We need to work with negative values and positive values. You can put as much as you want. I mean, you can put even minus 0.1. But minus 1 will serve the purpose because we don't really need to know how strong is the jumping itself. We just need to know that the force is either lower than 0 or bigger than 0. So this will serve the purpose. We can actually test it. But before we test it, we have to add the parameter as we did before for the running or walking. We're going to have to add something similar to this one, and we're going to call it y velocity, in which we're going to get from the rigid body. And we're going to have to change the value here, make it y. And then let's give it a test. So if we play this, we can see here on the right side he's falling. If we decrease it, that means we have a negative value, which is falling down. But if we have a positive value, it means he's going upwards. You see now we're falling, climbing, falling, ascending. So that's good. Let's keep this at 0. So we've got this thing in here working perfectly. What we need to do, we need to actually have this transit like this. So from whatever state that we are right now, if we do something, do jumping, and then we resume. But we have to give a value here, which is going to be a trigger that we're going to get, and we're going to name it jump. And this trigger, we're going to get it from the script itself. Whenever this trigger is enabled, which is true, we move from any state that we are into jumping. But if it's disabled, we false it out. So it's as simple as this, but we want to do one thing. We want this thing to be instantaneous, so we have to make sure that this thing is unticked. So we don't need any exit values. We have to put the transition into 0. So it's going to be instantaneous without going from one to others. And the same thing will have to go in here. So no exit value, and this is going to be 0, and we're good. Right now we've finished the animator section without any problems. So let's recap what we've done. So we've got the jumping boolean, which is a trigger to the animator from the script. Whenever this trigger is on, let's see, it's on, move from wherever state we are into jumping, which is a blend tree that has the y velocity value, which is going to be taken from the script also, and it's going to determine whether we're going upwards or downwards. And then as soon as the jump trigger is, oh, I'm saying trigger, but it's not really a trigger, it's a boolean. But as soon as the jump boolean goes off, we go back to the standing. If you have more animations in here, you have more idle ones, I always get back to the default one, so it's fine. So right now we've got this running fine without any problems. We have to go to the script. So in the script, we have to find 2 points in which we're going to trigger this jump mechanics. And the first one is quite simple. We've done it before. We have it here. As soon as we click the jump button, we can enable that thing, right? Here. So what we're going to do is, all we have to do is you're going to go animator, that's set boolean. Set boolean, yep. Jump into true. That's it. It's as simple as this. So let's test it right now. We've done a lot of talking and no testing. So if we go back to the scene, let's put this in here. Let's see. So right now we've got this running fine. So if we jump, see, everything is fine. We can see that the jumping animation is playing, but we don't have the proper velocity value. See, like right now the velocity is always 0, and 0 means it's going down, because in here when we see that the falling and they actually overlap in the same value, so we have a lot of minimal stuff, so we have only one frame. And the second problem is we need to see when do we actually land on the floor. So for that we have this simplest solution. We have a mechanic that we've built, which is a ground check, which detects whenever you are grounded, which means you're standing on the floor. We're going to use this thing to trigger the grounded, the jumping to be disabled. So what I'm going to do here is, as long as we are grounded, the jump bool in the animator is disabled. So that means is, if the grounded is true, so if this is true, the jump should become false. So that means we're going to have to get the opposite value of is grounded. It's that simple. So we go this jump. So we set this value into with a exclamation mark, which gives the opposite value of is grounded. So let's recap this quickly. So let's give an example. Let's say we're on the floor, right? If we're on the floor, we go this is false, we go here, and then this becomes true, and it comes here, and this becomes false, right? So that means the jump is false, which is correct. We don't want him to be jumping while he's standing on the floor. If the other situation is, if we're flying, like not flying, jumping, and not grounded, so this starts as false, and then we check the flooring, and this comes as a nothing, so it remains false, so then this becomes true, okay? Which means the jumping boolean is true, and we can play the jumping animation. This sounds as it is, simple as that. So what's going to happen right now is, we're going to see him jumping up and down with the same animation. But what we're going to do is we need to assign the velocity y from the rigid body. I think it's the best way to do it in the update because it's much more frequent. So what we're going to do is we're going to go set the y velocity in the animator. The velocity is basically going to be the rigid body velocity dot y. That's it. Simple as that. So if you're running left and right, it's going to remain 0. As soon as you go down and up, it's going to change. What we're going to do is going to animator dot set float, and it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's called y velocity, and it's going to be rb the velocity dot y. We're not going to take the absolute value because we need the both values, the negative and the positive. So with this way, it's going to be we're always changing the value of the y in the animator, which is good. We can determine whether we're going up and down, and then as soon as we're not on the floor, this thing will play. I'm going to tell you why this thing is important this year. Let's see right now. Because we're not detecting that thing by default. Like if you're standing on the floor and you jump, everything is fine, right? Because you're clicking this button. But what about, like, what if you have this level when you have the character spawn like this high, or actually like really high? Okay, how can we actually make him play the jumping thing? So we have to find a way of, even if we don't press this button, we have to have the jumping trigger enabled in here. That's when the grounded thing comes to work. So as long as he's on the air, you can play animation of jumping. More talk and no work. So right now what's going to happen is if we click this, he's going to start playing the animation while falling down. If it does. Yeah, see? Because we've got the value of here. Like you can see here, if I jump, you're going to see this value here. I'm going to go in here. Here or here, it doesn't matter. So you can see this change as when we jump. Like we're jumping, it's positive, and now it's negative. Positive, negative. And then you can notice sometimes there's this small glitch when we jump. You see like this quick frame change. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens sometimes. Yeah, see, it just happened. That's because what's happening is whenever we're grounded, we don't play the jumping animation. But whenever we're not grounded, we play it. But what's happening is this is not the only place that we're changing the grounding animation. In the previous tutorial, actually, I changed it here right after the jumping, which was good, but not optimal in this situation. So what I'm going to do is going to disable this in here. And then if we go back in here, we're going to see that we're not going to have that glitch anymore. Okay, let's start. Come on. It finished loading. Okay. So if we go left, right, jump. See now we don't have this kind of a frame issue. But again, there's a small possibility of it happening, and it all depends on how big is the ground detection thing and how big. But it's barely visible here. Like I couldn't see it too much. And I think actually the other, I forgot to mention the other reason why you can see it's really slight, but he's playing the falling animation before the standing animation. That's because for some reason whenever we have these values in here, the 0 value falls for the jumping itself. Okay, so the way to do this is we can put another state of animation in here called idle, or like to have a center point between these two. But what we can do is we can have this here. We can keep this as -1, and instead of this being 1, we can make it 0. Okay, so let's test it out, see if it works fine. Okay, so let's click on the fox, go on the blending tree, and then we see here. So if we have the value of 0, right now he's going up. But if we keep this as 1, You see it's going down. So let's keep it as 0, because everything from 0 upwards will become, you know, him going upwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how it works. We're going to avoid that problem, hopefully. Yep, I can see. Let's try it a couple of times. There's a slight change. I think it's because the y value is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to if jumping no, actually. So this is something I haven't actually noticed before. So let's try to figure this out. So why this happens is it's because for some reason the y value starts at slightly less than 0, like I think like hundreds, no, like 0.001, which causes him to look down before up, which is not a problem. But if you're a perfectionist, what you can do is we can have this thing in here. Where is it? So right now we're giving this value to the animator, which is not a problem. But what we need to do, we need to make sure that whenever we jump, we need to have a positive value of the velocity. And we can either force it or make this call happen slightly afterwards. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this thing. Okay, let's put it in here. Actually, you know what? Let's put this. Yeah, let's keep here. There's multiple ways of fixing this. It's by using coroutines or other stuff. Yeah. So let's find a way how to fix this. So I was able to find the problem, but I couldn't fix it in the current situation. But I was able to find a workaround for it. And the only reason that this is happening is whenever we're clicking the jump button, we're enabling the jumping boolean in the animator. Here, this one, which in terms reading the jumping mechanics. But sometimes I guess the value is not that consistent, but it can come from like because of the physics. Sometimes the thing goes down up quickly. So these values are not constant. It's not. I don't think it's 100% plus. Sometimes it gets smaller. That's why we're playing the going down and up at the same time. So to avoid this, what I did is in the jumping state, I put another state in between. And you can put your own one, but I use the idle itself. You can put another one image of idle, or if you have a what's it called, like a jumping idle. But right now I don't have that one, so I used the idle one. And what I did in here is I kept this -1 and 1, and then whenever this is 0, and it plays the idle animation, which is this one, if you can see. So the cool thing is, whenever we jump, we start from around 0, and then it either goes up and down. So when we put this value of 0, 1, it gives us this kind of a small buffer. It depends on how fast you jump. Right now, the jumping mechanic, it works good for -1 and +1, but whenever we jump, it first plays this and then plays whatever comes afterwards. And the same goes whenever we jump up, and then when we're hanging on and we go down, it plays the idle animation for a clip of a second. You'll see here, like right now we're walking. If I jump, you can see that we're not getting the glitch anymore from the start jumping, but you can see whenever we reach a standing point of the velocity, before we go down, the acceleration, when the acceleration is actually at 0, he goes back to the idle, like this, boop, goes down. So with this, we have ourselves animation for the jumping along with the mechanics of going up and down. I hope you guys liked it, and we're gonna have more advanced tutorials in the next tutorials. Not in the soon one, but in the advanced ones. This is for beginners, where we're gonna talk about the 2D animation, the 2D blend tree, from which we're doing right now here. Because right now we're doing the walking as an X for horizontal and the jumping for vertical. But in the future, you can make this an advanced blend tree, which can get both X and Y. This is all for this episode, and I hope you learned something from this. If not, if you have any questions, please post in the comments below. And otherwise, please hit the like and subscribe button, and then for more good content. And bye bye.